Hello everybody, and welcome to my quick little intro to hatching fundamentals, and also tips and tricks video about hatching and my favorite things with hatching. All right, so here I have opened up a basic main floor plan. So these skills that I show you in this video, you can use towards any basic project. It doesn't have to be a floor plan. It could be an elevation. It could be a section drawing. It could be anything like that. Okay. So again, it could be an elevation. It could be a section. It could be a floor plan. It could be a elevation section. You know what I mean? So these hatching skills can definitely be applied to any drawing file in AutoCAD. All right. So in this first step, what I'm going to do is basically just explain some brief things about the hatching ribbon and hatching settings. So first off, I'm going to change my current layer to hatching. So I'm going to change again my current layer to hatching. All right, and the command for hatching is H, enter. Just quickly, the letter H, enter. Don't feel like you have to spell out the whole word hatch every time. You can just hit the letter H, enter. All right, when you do that, you will notice the ribbon at the top of your screen changes. All right, now if you're using a previous year of AutoCAD, somewhere in like 2018 era, it'll be a hatching window, like an actual box that displays up in front of your drawing. They switched that up into the ribbon a few years ago. So just keep that in mind, depending on where you use AutoCAD. If you go to a previous year version, sometimes things change. So now it's up in the ribbon. So we want to put all of our attention up here. All right, the first thing to do is pick your pattern. You'll notice that that's not the first box. The first box is boundaries. Well, I will get to this boundary box in a minute, okay? First, let's pick our pattern. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is hatch the walls. I'm, again, working with a floor plan, so I need to hatch my walls. Now, when you click on that arrow that I clicked on there, again, that's this double arrow here, it expands the hatch patterns. Well, it's still not the greatest size box, so what I like to do is move my mouse to the bottom right corner here until I see the arrow on diagonal. I click and drag, and now I can see them much better. I don't have to scroll at all anymore. I can see all hatch patterns at once. And in fact, I usually do this. I like to have the hatching screen take up the whole ribbon up at the top. And that way I can still see my drawing here, and then I can see all the hatch patterns up here. Now we select our hatch pattern. All right, so again, I'm going to hatch my walls, and you hatch whatever you need to hatch, but I'm going to hatch my walls. And my walls here are just basic siding walls. So I haven't added any of my wall layers. I'm just going to hatch them all one hatching for now. All right, so let's pick ANSI 136. Okay, now the next thing to do is play with your properties. We need to fix the properties. Now, my hatch pattern is already on an angle, and I'm happy with that angle of my hatch pattern. If you need to change the angle of your hatch pattern, you would do so here. Okay? What I do need to change is I need to change the scale. This box here is the hatch scale. Okay? So the hatch itself has been pre-drawn, and it is scaling for you depending on what you've drawn here. All right, so I'm going to keep it at 1. We're going to see if that's good, and I'll show you what happens when we change the scale. Transparency, those are the most important things. All right, next, hatch transparency. Sometimes, depending on things and what I'm hatching, I will set up a transparency, so that way when it prints a little bit more user-friendly and easier to read. I'll get to that later on. Pattern, we've already picked that. Next is color. Now, for example, this happens a lot in my frame of work of architecture. I actually have to pick my hatch to be a different color than the layer I have already set up. So if that's the case, I would want to do that here. And again, I'm going to show you that later. And then this is a background color of your hatch. And this doesn't really get applicable for basic drawings, so I will not touch base on this. All right, so now what I want to touch base on is the boundaries. I want to hatch inside my walls, and right now I have the selection box. That is not at all what I want. I want to choose pick points. And when I choose pick points, my mouse turns into my crosshair. And now I get to pick inside the walls and inside the points that I would like to hatch. So I can already see by my preview that my scale is way too tight. It's too small. But I am going to click and apply it first so I can show you how to edit this afterwards. So I've placed my first set of hatch, and I'm going to press escape. All right, now the ribbon will change back to the basic home ribbon, and I now want to edit. I zoom in and I'm going to go ahead and select my hatch. When I select my hatch, sure enough, my ribbon changes once more and I'm back to my hatch pattern. Now I can in fact change the properties of my hatch pattern. And I'm going to up it to 10. Enter. And sure enough, just like that, it's a much better size and I can see it when I'm zoomed in here. But can I see that properly when I zoom out like this? Not at all. So I'm going to zoom back in, select it, and perhaps zoom out. Keep it selected, but just zoom out so I can change my hatch scale while I have the whole floor plan. So I don't have to do this, 4 times. Okay, I'm going to up by 5, 15. Feel free to deselect if you want to see it. And then I'm going to go ahead and select it again, and I'm going to up it by 5 more to 20. Much better. All right, so I'm happy with my 20. Now, how do I apply this to the rest of my walls? I want it to be attached, okay? So yes, I can use a couple of things here, but I want all of my hatching to be attached together, okay? So I'm going to explain that in a minute. If I go ahead and H-enter right now, and I continue the hatch I have set up, it's going to be my original properties from before I edited the original hatch that I just placed. That's not what I want. So there's a couple things I can do here, but the main thing I want to do again, yeah, okay, I could change my scale here and go, okay, well, I know now I edited this to 20. So, okay, now I can go ahead and add it. Sure. But when I press escape and I reselect this hatch, it's attached, but it's not attached with the other one. That's not what I want. I want all of my hatching to be attached together. So therefore, we don't go ahead and H-enter, start the command. Nope. We are actually going to select the hatch we have already applied, and we just choose pick points here up at the top. It activates a new feature of hatch, a new command of hatch, and I get to continue my hatch by pick points. And now I get to go around to the exterior walls, and once I add all hatching here of my exterior walls, I will show you that it is attached. Zoom in to help your eyes out. You can see there that I can't see that little tiny partition of the wall in between the glass there of the windows. Don't feel like you've got to do this totally zoomed out. Zoom in, help your eyes out. Sometimes that happens, okay? So I was waiting. I was so hoping that this would happen. So, I'm zooming in, zooming out. Well, that sometimes plays with AutoCAD's physical awareness, I'm going to say. So I'm going to click close and go, okay, you're a liar. I know this is a closed boundary. What happens is AutoCAD gets confused with my zooming in and zooming out. It goes, oh, I can't hatch that. And it just gives you that error regardless. So when that happens, zoom out, find your spot, and then hatch. If you cannot find your spot zoomed out, for example, like this one, then zoom in, find your spot with your crosshair, and zoom out without moving your mouse. So that way it maintains its location. You can zoom out, apply it, click, and it will apply your hatching much, much easier, okay? And my mouse is giving me some difficulties here. It won't hatch that one. There we go. All right. And it has been hatched when it highlights it, right? All right, so I don't want to hatch all of that. So I'm done. I'm hatched all my exterior walls here. Enter. And just like that, you can see now it has been attached to my original wall that I hatched up in this top left corner. All right. Now that's just hatching my walls. Now when I select though, all I have is just one big grip point in the middle, and that's all I got. Sometimes with hatching, what we want our grip points to be surrounding around the hatch. So that way we can edit it and pull it if we need to. Well, that is this button right here, associative. If I uncheck this button, just like that, I have those grip points that I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to show that again. I have my hatch selected, so I'm going to deselect to show you that full step. So I'm going to select my hatch, and you see I only have this one grip point. It's very non-user friendly. I want all the grip points around my walls. Well, that is associative here. I will disassociate it, and now I have grip points around all of those objects. And so let's say all of a sudden I need to edit a window or something like that, and I need to stretch my hatching. I'm going to turn ortho on. And let's say I need to stretch my hatching out like that. I can do that now with those grip points, okay? All right, so I'm gonna quickly save my file. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want to change the hatch for my load-bearing walls. I have a few load-bearing walls on my floor plan, and typically in floor plans we want to change the hatch to something else. So that means I want to start the command all over again. It is a brand new hatch, meaning start the command over again. Open up your hatch patterns and proceed with the next steps. Pick your hatch pattern. I'm going to keep the scale at 20, see how it goes. I'm happy with my angle, but I want to change the color this time so it, strike attention when I'm in my file. It'll print still black and white and to the line weight properties I have set up in my layers, but I want to just print a different color when I am in model space, when I am in AutoCAD for my own view. I'm going to change it to, I can use a different color for these. These are okay. I don't like to use all of the crazy colors for printing because they don't print very well, but these basic colors. But all of these other awesome colors I like to use for hatching, and it's totally doable for hatching. So we're going to go with I want to see something that I can actually see with the screen share. So we're going to do this, like mustard yellow. Okay, so I've got my hatch patterns. Yes. Okay, so we're going to apply my hatch. I click inside, and actually, you know what? My hatch pattern scale is a bit small, but I'm going to apply my hatch to all my walls first. Oh, and let's say I don't want my hatching to go into this 2x4 partition here. I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and back up over here on this side of the house and apply my load-bearing wall hatch to this side of the house. Enter, and I have applied my hatch. Okay, so that is changing the color of my hatch, but you'll also notice when I select it, it's still on my hatching layer. I will go back to home and you'll notice it's still on the normal hatching layer, although it has a completely different color. Okay, so that is how you can have a different color just for your own visual sake. Again, in model space, this wouldn't print. All right, so this area right here, I do not want my hatch to go across in this 2x4 little wall there. What I suggest is you maintain on your hatching layer. I'm going to use the line command. I'm going to draw a line from here to here. So it's nice and light. It'll print nice and light with my hatch. But I'm also going to match properties. MA enter to match properties of this hatch to this line so I get the right color. Then I'm going to click in this hatch because, again, I want to maintain the same hatch altogether. I want them to be attached. I use that pick points button again, and I can go ahead and apply my hatch into that partition and enter to complete. And there we be. We have the hatching now in our load-bearing walls. And I'm going to show you again that associative button again to get my grip points all around my walls. I unclick the associative button, and I have all my grip points. Okay, so that's a different hatch with a different color as well, maintaining on the same layer. I'm going to save my file. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hatch different rooms. Okay, I'm going to hatch different rooms. Actually, before I hatch different rooms, I'm going to apply a different hatch to my screen porch walls. They are a different construction. I'm going to hatch those differently, just repeating the same steps that I just showed with the two different hatches, just so that way, again, you have some extra practice to maintain those skills. AutoCAD is all about practice, practice, practice. So I'm going to do that and let you practice with your next piece of your drawing, and I'm going to do that with my screen porch walls here. So still on my hatching layer and H enter, because once again, brand new hatch means I restart the command, H enter. Okay, let's pick a hatch pattern. Okay, so for my screen porch walls, they're screening, so it's a little bit different here for construction. So what I'm going to actually do is dots. That's what I'm going to do for my screening walls. Just making sure if there's anything else that's more suitable. Nah, I like the dots. I'm going to use the dots. Okie dokie, I'm going to change my color. And I'm going to go for more of a pale blue this time for my screening. I have pick points already selected. and I can go ahead and add my dots. I like my 20 scale, so I will not change that. And I'm going to apply this around my glass, so that way it's clear as day to my trades where the screening, full screening goes. And if I select my hatch, once again, you'll notice it's not associative, therefore it is associative, therefore I do not have any grip points around. I'm going to unclick that associative button, and I have all those lovely grip points. Now, let's say, for instance, I want to go back now that I have my 3 hatches. I want to go back and I want to up the scale of this. It's too tight. I select it, go into my hatch here, and I just go ahead and change my scale. I'm going to up it to 25. Yeah, much better. Much better. Excellent. I'm going to save my file. So those are all of my different wall types. I don't typically hatch my just typical interior load-bearing walls. Those are the only walls I typically don't hatch. This is just my typical standards for my own job. And that's because then I note them, and so then that way the trades know any wall that is not hatched is just a regular 2x4 partition. And the reason why that is the case is because that is the most common used wall, and it is the most popular wall on my floor plans. Not only most commonly used, I mean throughout all construction projects, but I mean also the most popular in my actual plans. So you hatch the thing that's used least, so that way your drawings aren't so filled. They're not so jam-packed. You have some white space. You know, we know from graphic design that white space is very advantageous, just as much as the hatching is. So when not to do it and when to do it, and that's my opinion, is when not to hatch and when to hatch for my floor plan, for example. Okay, next I want to hatch different rooms. Okay, I have different rooms here, and I want to hatch different rooms. I want to put focus, let's say, to the clients of the kitchen area. A lot of the times what I have to do actually here for this is I have to calculate square footage for glass calculation. You have to have an actual percentage of glass for a living room, a dining room, a kitchen space, and a bedroom space. So that is usually the reason why I usually will hatch different spaces. So that is the idea that I'm going to maintain for this video, okay? So I'm going to add a hatching for the bedroom, the primary bedroom here. I'm going to add a differentiation hatching between the living room, dining room, and kitchen. An entry. There'll be no hatch, okay? So I'm going to, again, stay on my hatching layer. And what I'm going to do first is add those dividing lines. I need double closed boundaries. If I just go hatching right here, I'm going to hatch this whole thing, right? We know with hatching, we need closed boundaries. So I'm going to go ahead and use my line command and add in those closed boundaries. So for my living space, I'm going to maintain the interior walls here, turn ortho on. I'm going to draw a straight line across this way, and from the interior wall here, straight line across this way. And I'm just going to fillet. F-enter, and fillet this to my 90-degree corner. That's my living space, just like that. Okay. Dining space, I'm going to extend. EX, enter for the extend command, and I'm going to go ahead and extend this line all the way to the next load-bearing wall. Boom, there's my dining room. We want circulation space, and I want to account for that circulation space, and I've naturally created that with this partition here, just going straight across. I now have circulation space in my floor plan, leading from my entry to the rest of my spaces, to the hallway of the other space, as well on this side to the doorway of the bedroom, and the stairs, okay? So for my kitchen, this is pretty self-explanatory here. I'll enter from the peninsula here straight across. You'll see that it lines up. I've planned this on purposefully to my wall. So I've got that line right from my peninsula of my island to my wall. Just like that, I have divided up my spaces. This is, again, just for hatching. I'm going to apply my hatch, and I can remove these lines after. And you're going to see that the hatch can just fade away, dividing up the spaces. Okay? So H-enter. Now is a matter of picking 4 different hatches for these 4 different spaces. So this is a matter of preference. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and pick some random hatches here. I'm going to use first angle for one of my spaces. And you'll see now I can hatch in here. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, how come that went all the way through my countertops? I thought it was a closed boundary. It is not because of right there. Okay, okay, perfect. So that went through all my counters because it's not closed in the corner. Or let's say, for example, I wanted this to go all the way over top of my counters, okay? I'm going to show you that at the end, okay? I'm going to close that boundary. Just give me a second here. I want to close that boundary because I don't want that to happen. I want it to hatch through everything. Okay, so now I'm going to hatch. And you'll notice when I hatch inside a space now, it just hatches the floor. Now, this would be fantastic if this was my flooring hatch, but that's not the purpose of this hatching in this example. If you were hatching your flooring, then this would be perfect. I don't want to hatch my countertops because this is not the hatching for my flooring, okay? But if this was, then this would be absolutely perfect in what I would want to do, okay? So for example, for this example, I'm going to say that's exactly what I want. I want to just hatch my floor. So I've used my angle, which is great. I have a square nice tile in my kitchen, and I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now my scale is off, and I want to change the color back to normal hatching. So I'm going to change the color back to by layer, so it's back to the gray that I have, and I'm going to change my scale because again, this is the scale of my flooring tile that I have, and I want to make sure that it is more accurate to what it is, like, you know, installation. So I'm going to up the scale to 30. And let's say, for example, you know what, I actually, what you can do if you want to use this hatch, because again, I don't want a whole grid. I like this angle hatch for square tile because it's not finished and it's not, again, so heavy in your face. So if I want to accurately make sure that this is to my square tile, let's say I have 12-inch tiles. What I suggest you do is at one corner, you draw a 12-inch line. There we go, I have a 12-inch line, and now I'm going to change the scale. Let me put this on a different layer so I can see it. There we go. Let me put it on top. All right, there it is. So now it is on top. How come it really won't go on top? There it is. Anyway, I'm going up the scale. Let me put my counters in the bottom. Maybe that'll help. Hatching? No, it really just doesn't want to sit on top. Anyway, I'm going to up the scale and I'm going to match that line. So I'm going to up it to 40. Nope, not quite, because you can see the edge there. 50. And that's pretty darn close. I can move this line around where needed. I can move this line there. Nope, not yet. Okay. I'll up it to 55. Yeah, that's good enough for me just for the sake of the time for the tutorial. But now I've got it a little bit more accurate for my floor tile. Okay, I'll show you later what you want to, when you want to hatch the whole space. So now I'm going to move on, and I'm going to now hatch my dining room, living room, and bedroom, and I'm just going to go ahead quickly here, pick new hatch, and apply, play with the scale. Okay, so next what I like to use is the stars, something non-floor tile related. I will go back to my by layer, and I'm going to change my hatch scale here to 50 and go ahead and hatch the dining room scale stars. And I'm going to press enter again, repeat. I'm now going to change the hatch completely to the net. Once again, something non-floor tile related, so it's very clear this is not a floor tile at all. I mean, you can have floor tiles like this. That's not the case. This is just for, let's say, visual sake for area calculations, strictly, let's say, for example. Okay. Okay, wonderful. So let's say, for example, now for the whole primary bedroom area, I want to add a hatch that goes across the whole walk-in closet and the ensuite because I want to put focus to my clients that this is their whole area. They get this whole bedroom, they get this whole ensuite, they get this whole walk-in closet. Well, that means that I'm going to add a polyline around the whole area. Okay, so PL enter, I'm going to maintain on my hatching layer, And I'm going to draw a polyline around this entire area, snapping to all the points that I need to snap to, keeping ortho on to go nice and straight. And I can see close. Yep, see, enter. Remind yourself that at the end of the polyline, you can always see close. So now I have a polyline around the entire area. Okay, so now I'm going to go H enter to pick my hatch. And again, a whole new different hatch. Non-floor tile. Okay, this is like usually the glass hatch. All right, so I'm just gonna do a preview here to see what my hatch is like. Nope, I'm gonna go back down to 1. Sometimes when you go too big, that's why you can't see your hatch. There we go, and that's exactly why. So 1 is good. But instead of using pick points, I want to use select. So top left corner here in your ribbon, instead of pick points, you want to use select. And I'm now going to select the polyline I added around the space. And just like that, I enter, and it hatches through everything. It hatches over top the entire area. So I can say, hey, clients, this is your whole entire area. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, I didn't want it to go over my text. Then what I would do is I would add a rectangle around my text. So like this. Okay. And around this text. And around this text. Okay. And then what I do is I trim. TR, enter. I select just these 3 boxes. Whoopsie. Oh, it's new version of trim. So sorry. I'm used to the old version of trim. My apologies. Restart. Trim. Enter. And I go ahead inside these and I can trim the hatch. I have to select. See, it's not going to let me. So this is with new trim. New trim is cheeky. Okay, we're going to do this another way. You're going to select your rectangles first. Then you're going to start the trim command, TR, enter, and then you can go ahead inside. Oh, this used to work. Why can't I trim? Is it because it's not associative? Maybe. Okay, let's try this again. Associative. Interesting. Interesting how it's registering those rectangles now, but not that one. Okay, I'm happy I have one and not the other, so I can show you both. Okay, let's try this again. Nope, it's going to trim everything. And what about that one? Nope, okay. Usually I can trim my hatch, so I'm glad this is happening live, so you can see that complications happen with all of us. Okay, I've selected my polylines again now. I'm going to trim. Let's see if I can do this now. Yes, I can. There we go, everybody. So that is the trick there, to trim your hatch around your text. So again, add that rectangle. Make sure your hatch is not associative. Okay, be sure that that's not turned on. Select your rectangles first. Start the trim command and go ahead and trim that hatch. And now I can remove these rectangles. I don't need them. They were just there as a guide. And now I can remove them and my hatch just pleasantly goes around my text, okay? Just like it normally does here and there. And let's say, for example, here too, I don't want the defying lines. I don't need them. The hatch does that for me. And now the hatch just fades into the rest of the floor plan, okay? And it looks like my stars. I didn't have a closed boundary somewhere. Isn't that funny? Hatching gets so weird sometimes. So what I would do there is, again, make sure it's not associated. Trim. Whoopsie, I would actually select this first. There we go. Trim. And then try and trim that hatch out. Yeah, there we go. I'm so glad this happens live on the recording, so you know how to fix this when this goes crazy. And this stuff here is the other hatch. Okay, so I'll do the same thing. I'm going to select and draw a nice big box around all of those walls. TR, enter, and then trim that hatch out of those walls. There we go. Okay. Okay, so that works for that. Now let's say, for example, once again, I want to hatch the whole area of the kitchen, not the floor tile. All right, so I'm going to hide I'm going to hide the floor tile. And what I'm going to do is do a simple polyline, just like we did here. Yes, I do need to do a polyline. It's not a rectangle. So polyline from the corners of my space, so that way it hatches around everything. And once you're doing the last line, see close, and it will close your polyline for you. Okay, now might as well put the step in here now. Add a rectangle around the kitchen room name, because we're going to trim that hatch later. Okay, so H, enter, and I'm going to pick a totally, again, different hatch, because it's not the floor tile this time. It's something totally different. We're going to pick triangles. Sure. Pick points this time, because I want to see just a scale first. What's my triangles like? Too tight. Let's go up to 50. How's that? Much better. Now I go to select, right? We don't want pick points. I want to go to select boundaries. I can now select the boundary of my polyline and enter. So now I have that. You can remove your polyline now. You don't need that afterwards, right? Like same with this one. I can remove this polyline here. So I don't have that line. I can remove that. Okay. Now I want to trim that rectangle, right? Trim the hatch out of my room name. So I'm going to select my rectangle, TR, enter, and I'm going to go ahead and select my hatch out of my room name. Now when I can go ahead and remove the rectangle, the hatch does not go through my text, but now the hatching goes through over top of all my objects just like I wanted it to. Okay. So that shows you the difference of hatching with pick points inside an object, you know, around objects like this, or what happens when it goes through objects, or what happens when it goes through random objects and how to trim them out. But then it also helps you how to add a polyline and pick the point, pick the object you want to hatch inside of the whole object, and then how to trim that hatch around your text on top of that. So let's say, for example, I want now to keep this hatch. I want to unhide my floor tile, and now I want to hide this hatch. Oopsie, hide objects, and now I can bring it back. You can always flip-flop between that if you need to with unhide and hide objects. Okay? The very last thing I want to show you here is, let's say I want to apply the floor tile that I have applied here in the kitchen into my laundry room area here. Okay? I'm going to add a dividing line in my floor tile from wall to wall here, because let's say I've got a nice hardwood floor. Let's say I've got a nice hardwood floor in my hallway, okay? And my tile doesn't start until this wall change here, until that angle there, okay? So what I'm going to do is match properties. I've already applied the kitchen tile under here, and I want to apply that into the laundry room. So I'm going to go H, enter, because let's say I don't want it in the kitchen anymore. I want it in the laundry room instead. So I don't have hatching on top of one another here. I'm going to go H, enter, and I'm going to match properties. I'm going to use this button up here. So I'm going to click on the actual icon, match properties. I'm going to select, zoom in and select the floor tile hatch, not the triangles, the floor tile hatch. Immediately when I do that, I get a crosshair. I can now hover over into the area that I need the hatch and apply my hatch. And I still need tile with the floor, with the door swing, so I'm going to click inside that area as well. I click enter, and I now have a separate hatch matching that kitchen tile, because that's where I want it instead. So I'm going to go back to my kitchen and remove that hatch. I just want to display the floor tile only in the laundry area, and then these dividing spaces. And that is how you can match properties to a pre-existing hatch you have laid out to another area. You don't have to go through all that work again and playing with your scale or your rotation or the type. Just go ahead and use that match properties. All right, that sums up my quick hatching fun tips and tricks tutorial video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found something helpful in here. All right, stay tuned for my next ones coming up. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Ciao.